Loren Taylor is the District 6 council member in the city of Oakland. He's also running for mayor in the upcoming election. Loren, thank you so much for your time in doing this.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
If it's okay, I have to start with the, $12 billion question. Do you think that the city council, at current pace in negotiations with the A's, do you think the city council will be taking up a binding vote on this project by the end of 2022?
We are working feverishly to get there. I know that staff are meeting regularly with our counterparts on the other side of the table, the A's. And so I'm optimistic that there will be a decision called, a question called before the end of the year. I think everyone knows that there's a certain amount of predictability with the current council members and electeds. And after the election, there's uncertainty. And so it makes more sense to kind of move forward with what is known as opposed to the unknowns that may occur after November 8th.
And we've heard from Dave Cavell on the A's side, obviously. We've heard from Mayor Libby Schaaf on the Oakland City side. And these negotiations have been going on for many months now. Are you kept up to date on where they're at? Are you part of them? What is your involvement with the negotiations?
So, while not involved in the day-to-day of the negotiations, I do have regular updates from staff and am able to provide my input, my feedback as to different terms that are being considered, how things are progressing. And so I feel as though I am being kept up to speed as much as I want and need to in order to make sure that things are moving forward.
And, it's an interesting situation because both sides have been very optimistic about how things have progressed and how things are going. That being said, we still don't have a development agreement or a community benefits agreement, like a handshake on it to even vote on for the city of Oakland. So in your opinion, in your evaluation, what is something that could complete this agreement, this development agreement for Oakland and the A's?
Every time I get updated, we are narrowing that gap that is sort of keeping us from actually having that decision, the question called and put up for a vote for the council. And so that progress is continuing to be made. Obviously, there are a number of elements that are still outstanding. I think everyone knows there is still a funding gap that exists relative to offsite infrastructure. We are attempting to close through in partnership, actually, between the city, the A's, and other stakeholders as well. We are also making sure that we are tight on what the community benefits are and the models that are being put out there so that we can be sure that the city is getting its fair return on its investment, what we're putting out there, and that coming back both in terms of revenue, also in terms of the benefits and that Oaklanders will enjoy.
Yeah, and you talked about the funding gap. And to be clear, I assume what you're talking about is the monies you're trying to get from the federal government that would go straight to infrastructure, right? Not to pay for the ballpark itself, but for the infrastructure. So is Oakland in control of any of that, or is Oakland in a position where you've done all the right things, you've applied for the federal money, and you have some of it, but not all of it? How is that part of it going?
Well, we are in a good position. We have secured significant portion of the funding that is required for the offsite infrastructure, and yet and still ultimate decision as far as writing those checks and bringing the additional dollars. It comes to those who hold those purse strings, and there are some federal dollars that we are looking for. And so optimistic that with infrastructure spending from the federal government and us presenting a united front here from the Bay Area and our local partners, representatives, stakeholder groups, that we will be able to secure the dollars necessary to fill that gap.
That's good to hear. Just like the A's, obviously the city is negotiating here, and council members like yourself, the mayor, everybody involved, they want the best deal for Oakland, for the voting public. I mean, that's clear that that's the objective here. But
Absolutely.
That being said, right, I think it's one thing to shoot for a walk-off grand slam in extra innings, if I can use a baseball reference, versus, hey, we just hit a 3-run homer, it gave us the lead midway through the game. Does this deal for Oakland, does it have to be a grand slam, or can it just be a home run that everybody's really happy with?
Hey, I think those baseball fans and any sports fan know a win is a win. And if we're getting more than we're getting out more than we're putting in, that is a benefit to the city of Oakland and its residents. Now, obviously, we want to get as much as we possibly can through that deal, and that's when the negotiation comes in. It's just like any other business deal, business transaction. You got to have a certain amount of ROI to make the deal worth it, and that's what we're working towards, and being able to effectively communicate and demonstrate to the taxpayers, who are ultimately the ones who will be supporting the investments we'll be making in the near term, with the anticipation of benefits coming both near term and long term.
You know, I think it's fair to say I've watched all the meetings and hearings and everything else. You've been pretty supportive of this project overall. I'm not going to say that it's a guarantee for you, but I think you've seen the positive side of it. On that note, it's been obvious that there are a couple other council members who do not favor this project, or they've got a lot of doubts or reservations about it. What are the opportunities you see here in this Howard terminal that maybe they don't?
Well, honestly, the opportunities, first of all, I think everyone knows that we in Oakland have always taken pride in the sports teams, those that we claim that establishes a major city is to have major sports teams. And so that can't be understated, while also that is not the end all and be all. We absolutely have to look at, as there are dollars and I will say money to be made, value to be created, that has to be shared equally with those investors who are supporting the project, like the Fisher family, the A's, and others, and sharing those same benefits, those same returns, those same rewards with the community, with residents of Oakland. And so it's finding that balance, that sweet spot. And when you talk about turning Howard Terminal, a parking lot right now that is generating less than $100,000 in revenue, and then absolutely seeing double $20+ million in annual revenue coming out once this project is done because of future taxes, both property taxes and others. That's huge value that's being created, and a lot of opportunity that we can't simply let slip by. And so that is what I'm focused on, is getting maximum value for Oaklanders. That is what my job is as a council member. Then that is what I will continue to do as Oakland's mayor.
I go back to something Councilmember Kolb has said a couple times, and he's referred to the A's as being the ultimate backstop, the financial backstop for this project. Essentially, if everybody commits and then it ends up costing more, the city of Oakland and the general fund of Oakland will not be the one at jeopardy. The A's will incur those costs. How do you feel about it? I mean, I'm sure you probably agree with that to a certain extent, but is that the only protection that Oakland needs to assure that basically, hey, this is a no-lose proposition for Oakland, that it's not going to cost the city anything extra if in fact things do go over?
You know, we've all been felt the pain of the past sports deals that have occurred. And so that's exactly one of the things that we are facing and trying to block against. We do not want to be stuck with holding the bag on these costs that we had with the Raiders and that even the Warriors were attempting to leave us with. And so absolutely not putting the city's general fund at risk is a high priority. It's also important that we get that high return as well. And so that's what, for the background noise if you're hearing that, but that's exactly what I'm committed to, is not risking the city or putting the future of Oakland at risk.
All right, let's talk real optimistic to close it out. You're running for mayor. November is the election, so it's very possible you could hold that office starting in 2023. I hope the campaign has gone well. I've seen you've had a lot of endorsements, so I'm assuming things are going well. If Howard Terminal is not resolved by the time the new mayor is installed, and if it's yourself, how would you handle this game plan? How would you handle this situation if it's not resolved by 2023?
Honestly, it's something that we have to continue to push forward, where we see the opportunities to close the gap between us and the A's. Ultimately, our primary goal is getting increased value to Oakland and Oakland residents. And we have to look at transformational projects like Howard Terminal, like the Coliseum, like some of the other ones that we're talking about. And the faster path to dollars is working with an existing project, an existing proposal, and making that work. Yes, I am not going to put the city at risk. We are not going to sell our soul in order to just have a green and gold logo. But at the same time, when there's an opportunity to create the win-win in a transaction, a negotiation that creates value for Oakland in the near term and long term. That's what we have to push for. That's what we have to continue to focus on. And that's what I will be excited to continue leading as Oakland's mayor, should the voters decide to elect me in November.
Well, Councilmember Taylor, really appreciate your time in this. I wish you the best of luck and the City Council the best of luck in this project, but also best of luck to you in the mayor's race.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you for what you do, helping to keep us all entertained and keeping the A's moving forward.
You got it.